Okay, we'll figure that out later.
Thank
I believe
you.
we are recording. Okay, thank you everybody for being here. I'm very excited for this opportunity to share this information with you. We are super jazzed because we have received a grant to help fund, to cover some of the cost for some upcoming apprenticeship programs. And actually we have 3 different occupations, not just medical assisting. We actually have medical assisting, central sterile processing, and pharmacy tech. All 3 of them, we have cohorts starting in January, and we have openings in all 3 cohorts, and we have funding to cover some of the costs. So I want to talk about that. I'm super excited to share that with you. We're trying to get all of our cohorts filled now, because come November, December, it's always hard to get people in, just because people are doing vacations and all that. So we want to get as much information as we can and try to get all those spots held now if we can. I want to start by showing a quick little 2-minute video, and I know not everybody's on camera, but hopefully you can see the camera. I'm going to show it. It's really short, but it talks about who the Healthcare Apprenticeship Consortium is. The other reason I want to do it is because it'll show you our website, which has a lot of information on there, so I want to connect you with that. So I'm going to share my screen briefly here, and I'm going to show you, there we go, and I'm going to do this, and there we go. You should be able to hear. Okay, so my question is, can you see the website?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Because I can't see you right now, I can only see the website, so thank you for saying out loud. So this is the Healthcare Apprenticeship Consortium website. You can come here and get more information about us and who our programs are, but I'm going to start by showing this video. So when I start this, will somebody just let me know for sure that you can see it, or put it in chat that you can see this?
Can you scroll up a little bit, please?
Mm-hmm. I just made it a full screen. Does that work?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Here's the situation. Washington State is facing a healthcare workforce shortage, and you feel it in hospitals, in the clinics, in your ability to provide care. And in the bottom line, your job openings are never quite filled. Caregivers are hired and trained, and they move on. Repeat. Isn't it time to break the cycle? Enter the Healthcare Apprenticeship Consortium, your workforce solution. We are a partnership created to provide Washington's healthcare industry a direct line to healthcare apprenticeships. This is the pipeline to the most skilled and engaged talent. And guess what? Any hospital or medical center can join. Did you know apprenticeship programs attract hundreds of qualified, diverse applicants from your community? Earn While You Learn brings in qualified candidates who just need training. Plus, when an apprentice is hired, the training is tailored to your specific needs. Implementation is simple. The Healthcare Apprenticeship Consortium helps you develop a plan. Then we walk beside you, guiding you through the process. It's straightforward, low cost, and the investment return off the charts. In fact, 91% of apprentices who complete their apprenticeship are still employed 9 months later. That's a benefit worth celebrating. Start with an apprentice, add a mentor, and watch. Skills increase, loyalty increases, while turnover drops. Employees feel valued, and patient care improves. Ready to get started? Many hospitals, health centers, and industry representatives are already in partnership with the Healthcare Apprenticeship Consortium. Need medical assistants, sterile processing technicians, other roles? We got you covered. And we continue to grow our apprenticeships. What jobs do you need filled? Contact us. Together, we will help solve our state's healthcare workforce crisis.
Okay, hopefully that was a little bit helpful to give some basic information. There's another video that actually gets into what an employer needs to do. That's also just about 2 minutes long. We might show that a little bit later, but let me talk a little bit about who I am and how we're related to the Healthcare Apprenticeship Consortium and all that. So my name is Laura Hopkins, and I'm the Executive Director of the Training Fund. Our long name is up behind me. Let's see, that way, I guess. The SEIU Healthcare 1199 Northwest Multi-Employer Training and Education Fund. So I'm going to answer the number one question is, are we part of the union? And the answer is no. We actually are not part of the union. The reason we have SEIU in our title is that we are connected. Our general benefits, the way that we work is that the 9 largest healthcare employers who have SEIU as their union in different bargaining units, they all contribute money to a single pot. Instead of having their own money to train their employees, they put it into a common pot. So we're responsible for that pot of money, and that's why SEIU is in our title, but we are an independent nonprofit 501c3. The Healthcare Apprenticeship Consortium, when I came on, I actually was recruited into this position because of my background building apprenticeship programs. I am the founder of AJAC, the Aerospace Joint Apprenticeship Committee, which there were not very many apprenticeship programs in the manufacturing sector, and I built AJAC, and I was the executive director there for about 7 years. And the training fund, actually about 2 years ago, which is half, the board is half of employers and half union. So we have representatives from University of Washington Medical Center, from Swedish, from Valley Medical Center, from Kaiser to CHI, all these different hospitals, as well as SEIU 1199. They all got together and said, you know what, we actually are, the biggest issue we have is workforce, and we need to start apprenticeship programs. So I was recruited into this position specifically to try to see if can we recreate what we did in the manufacturing sector for the healthcare sector. And really that's looking at building regional. I mean, the way that we were able to do this in the manufacturing sector was we didn't do it individually. We got together as a group and said, okay, really what we need is we need a big enough pool of candidates that all of us can access, instead of us trying to steal from each other. Can we build a big pool of candidates? And apprenticeship was the way to do that. And so we actually have, we became the sponsor of the Healthcare Apprenticeship Consortium. So the Healthcare Apprenticeship Consortium is actually a Washington State registered apprenticeship program, and it has a joint apprenticeship training committee. That's a state requirement in order to be a registered apprenticeship program. And so that joint apprenticeship training committee it's pretty identical people who are on my board who are also in this joint apprenticeship training committee. So it's all those employers I mentioned who are also represented in that joint apprenticeship training committee that make up the Healthcare Apprenticeship Consortium. So I'm going to pause right there and just, do people have questions about who we are, who I am, who the Healthcare Apprenticeship Consortium is? No questions? Okay, that's pretty amazing. Oh, Angie, are you talking? You're on mute.
I sure am. Okay, more Zoom swirl. Hey, thanks so much for doing this today. So my question is around the funding aspect. So it sounds like you're getting grants, and those grants are for you guys as an independent operator or administrator of the program.
Yes.
And then the union funds, I used to work for Kaiser, so it was part of the initial MA apprenticeship program that we put together there.
Oh, that's great.
So I'm familiar with that. So I'm very familiar with the union aspect of it. And so I'm just curious how that is parsed out as far as the dollars. So the dollars for the other employers that are non-union employers, does that come from this separate grant funding? Is that how it's?
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly right. So
okay.
let me talk a little bit about how the funding works. So in all these apprenticeship programs, there's multiple pieces of funding that you need. So there's funding that comes to the Healthcare Apprenticeship Consortium to actually run the apprenticeship program. And then there's funding that goes to the community college to pay for the tuition, because people actually get college credit for the classes that they're taking. So we have to have funding for both of those. The funding that we've received, so if you're part of the SEIU union and your folks are part of the training fund, then the tuition is already covered through the training fund. This grant, though, allows us to pay for tuition for non-union, or people who, it doesn't even matter whether you're union or not, people who are not part of the training fund. It allows us to cover that tuition cost. That's not for members who are not part of the training fund. It also, right now, the grant that we just received provides funding for covering our fee. So if you're part of, for example, Kaiser, where we have a medical assisting apprenticeship program. The program is entirely free to Kaiser because we cover all the cost. And that's because their medical assistants are part of the training fund. But if you're an employer who is not part of the training fund, then there's a fee attached because we are not allowed to legally use our training fund money, which is money from those employers, to pay for other people. So this grant money covers that cost difference. So our normal fee is around $3,200 per apprentice. And that's for the medical assistant apprenticeship program, and that's 1 year long. And actually the pharmacy tech and central sterile processing are around the same length, and so they're around the same cost, around $3,200. In this, with the grant that we received, that money is covered. So you don't have to, no employer, doesn't matter whether you're union or non-union, part of the training fund, not part of the training fund, that money right now, we have a certain number of slots that are available where we're covering that fee through a grant. So employers do not have to cover that fee. Does that answer your question, Angie?
It did. Thank you very much. That was very helpful.
Okay, yeah. So that's the thing. So after talking about who we are, the next point I really want to make is that the Healthcare Apprenticeship Consortium is open to any healthcare employer in Washington State. It doesn't matter whether you're union, it doesn't matter whether you're non-union, it doesn't matter. You are welcome to join the Healthcare Apprenticeship Consortium. And we all, the Healthcare Apprenticeship Consortium has employer representatives on it. So we, of course, have Swedish and Kaiser and University of Washington and all these different employers who are sitting on that JATC who help oversee the apprenticeship program. But it's definitely a joint employer and labor program that's built to really solve this regional issue that we have, right? So the idea was we need to come together. This is something that we all need. How do we work together to solve this problem? We needed to have more people at the table to drive this. And so that's how we built the Healthcare Apprenticeship Consortium. I do see that there's a question in chat, so I'm pulling it up. It's from Shalane, and it says, are you only enrolling incumbent workers or can you get external referrals from community partners? Great question, Shalane. We actually will do either. So for example, in our program with Kaiser, our medical assisting program, we had about half of the last cohort, half of the cohort came from within Kaiser. They were, for example, they were patient care POCs. I forget the actual word that goes with POCs, but it's the people who are sitting at the front desk when you come in to the clinics. So we had about half the people were from within Kaiser who are already working there who wanted to transition into medical assisting. But we also worked with our local community-based organizations. We have a lot of strong relationships with them, and we brought people to the table for Kaiser to interview to choose who they wanted to have in the program. So it was about half and half. Each employer, we can do whatever you want. We can work with you to either, if you already have people, if you have an internal system that you want to use and you want to raise your own people up who you already have, great. If you don't have that and you want outside people, we can help bring people to the table. Or if you want a combination, we can do that too. So we're open to working with any situation. We have a pretty good system in place now because we've been doing this. So we've got a pretty good model that works, but we can, every employer is different, so we can make it for you. The other thing I really want to make sure that you know is that you don't have to have 20 people. You don't have to have 20 spots. You can have just one. You can have one apprentice and we will work with you to get that, to build that program. You can start with 1 or 2 or 3, or you can have a whole cohort. A full cohort would be 20. We right now, the ones that we're starting in January, all 3 of the programs, we currently have some number of apprenticeship spots that are already filled, but we're looking to fill the rest of the class. So if you want to help fill in that class with 1, 2, or 3, or 10, or whatever, we can do that. Or if you have a full cohort, we actually, of course, will run another cohort as well. So we can talk about what the right combination is for you, however that works. Let's see here. I just want to pause. Any other questions about those pieces?
So this is Erin with CHI, and I don't know if this is the right time to ask the question, or you may have answered it and I missed it, so I'm gonna ask anyway.
Okay.
So in my mind, I'm thinking about like for our clinic groups, right, for Franciscan Medical Group, and what a great opportunity it would be to take our PARs, which are our patient access reps, those front desk people,
Okay. Yep.
and have an opportunity for them to train into an MA position, right? Because we're all
Yep.
hurting for MAs.
Yep.
And so totally get that the cost of that training would be covered under the grant, correct?
Yes.
What about the time that they spend in class? Are the is that paid time?
Great question, Erin. So it is a best practice to make that paid time, but it's not a requirement.
Okay.
So for example, with Kaiser, we absolutely, they really wanted to make that paid time. There's a lot of reasons to do that, and I'm going to talk about that right now, actually, because it's a really good point. And I'll talk about that particular structure. Again, we don't have to have it designed this exact way, but this is how the structure, our best practice structure is. They actually the way that we actually did the medical assisting program is, instead of starting on day one where you're splitting your time between doing on-the-job training and going to school, we actually started them with some school time, so that they actually had their feet wet and they had some basic concept before they're actually walking into a clinical setting. So we actually have the method that we have right now is about 3 weeks of classroom time on the front end, where they actually learn some of the basics, so that they have something that they're holding on to when they walk in the door. And once they do that first 3 weeks, then, and this is actually similar to our pharmacy tech and our central sterile processing, we plan on following a similar model to this because it seems to be working well. But once they do that initial first few weeks, then they transition to starting their clinic time. And the way that we did that was, we did Monday through Thursday, they worked with a mentor on site, and then on Fridays they did their full 8 hours of what we call their supplemental instruction, or their classroom time, and we had that as paid time. The reason that the paid time really makes the most sense is you're going to get the most diverse group of people being able to step into those roles if you make that paid time. That's really when it comes to equity, here's your opportunity to really make a difference, is because those are the people who are working 2 or 3 jobs to just try to make do, who we want to get into these positions, and they can't afford to not have that funding. Like a lot of these folks have family and whatnot. So if we make that on paid time, then they're not, because it's not just about the money. It actually has to do too with, then if they're in the clinic all 5 days, then they're the school time happens outside of that on a weekend or in the evening. So if they have families, it becomes really, really difficult. It becomes a really big burden. So it's really a best practice to do that. But again, I'm saying all that because you can tell I have a preference for that, because it works well, but it's
Well, it'll
not
be prohibitive otherwise.
Yes.
Most people aren't going to be able to stop working and go back to school, or they would have. And,
Yes.
and then is it up to each individual employer to set what those pay rates are when they go through based on our individual comp structures?
Great question, Erin. We actually, I'll say quickly, no is the answer to that one, but there's a longer answer to that. We actually do have a set journey levels wage rate across the state that was approved when we built the apprenticeship program. And that just means by the end, they have to be at a certain rate. Employers can choose to pay above that rate, which that often happens. But we do have at a certain point, so when you start, you have to be in, I don't have the 3 documents in front of me to make sure, but it's around, I want to say like 82% when they start. 82%, they have to be making a minimum of 82% of that final journey level rate. And then at 6 months in, they're making approximately 92%. And forgive me on the exact numbers, but it's in this ballpark. At 6 months, they jump up to 92%, assuming that they're on track. Now, there is a whole nother, if they're not on track, there's a whole pathway that I'll talk about in just a minute. But if they're on track, they would jump up to that 92% at 6 months. And then when they complete the program, then they actually get to bump up to that journey level rate. I'm hoping that makes sense. Those wage rates, setting a journey level rate, and when they transition to the percentage of that wage rate along the way, that's all state requirements for having a registered apprenticeship program. So we have that. And employers, again, you can pay as much as you want above that, but that we set a minimum rate for that. And I can share all those numbers with you.
Okay, perfect.
I talked about if you're not on track, there are pathways. So as much as we love to support our apprentices every now and again, and I just have to start off by saying I'm so proud. We just found out 2 weeks ago, 100% of our apprentices passed their medical apprenticeship exam. So we had 18 who completed and 18 who passed their medical assistant exam. So we are so super jazzed about that because we provide a lot of supports on that, tutoring and all kinds of things on the side to help support them make it through. So we're really jazzed about that. But there are times, having done apprenticeship now for many, many years, there are times when it doesn't work out. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. An employer at any moment, if they decide that the employee isn't working out for them and they need to let them go for whatever reason, they are free to do that. I want to make that clear. Like, just because they're in the apprenticeship program does not mean that they are separate somehow from all your other regular policies. They actually have to follow all your other regular policies. And if you need to let them go, you can let them go. So I get that question a lot, but you don't need to worry about that. That's up to you guys. We do, however, have practices in place if, for example, someone is not, they're not ready to be, you're not ready to let them go. They just essentially, there's a disciplinary process to help get them back on track. So for example, sometimes we have apprentices who do really well on the job, but they're not showing up for their theory portion of the class. So if they don't show up for the theory portion of the class, they actually get brought before the JATC, who gets to make a decision around saying either, nope, you can no longer be in the apprenticeship program, or they could say something like, you have to take an extra class, or you have to redo this class, or you have to do whatever. They can actually set their standards that they abide by, which has a whole disciplinary process to make sure that they're doing what they need to do outside of the on-the-job training. So if it's outside of the OJT, the discipline happens to the JATC. If it's on the job, it still happens through you, through your regular process, as per normal. We do have, let's see here, there was one other thought I had around that I wanted to make sure and say. What was the other piece? Well, it'll come back to me, but those are the main pieces, is that you can still let folks go if you need to let them go. Okay, somebody sent me through chat. I'm going to try to pull this up here. How many MA apprentices have gone through us to date, and will the January cohorts be the first in Central? Yes, great question, Shauna. So yes, we have only done medical assistant apprenticeship programs so far, and with Kaiser, and in January, we will be the first for central sterile processing and farm tech. Great question. So we're super jazzed about getting the pharmacy tech and the central sterile processing piece. I should talk about now around virtual training. COVID hit and the world has turned upside down, as we all know. The good news for us is that we were actually already planning on virtual classrooms prior to COVID hitting. So we already have a setup that we had planned for where we're going to have virtual classrooms all around the state. So this also so the point I want to make here is when you sign up your apprentices, you may, I don't know if you have an office at clinics in Spokane, clinics in Bellingham, clinics wherever, they can all participate because we will be doing the related supplemental instruction virtually, but it will be, here's the difference. This is really important to the Healthcare Apprenticeship Consortium. They didn't want just online learning where it's everybody out front, but here it's all online, just go do it yourself. Especially in the roles that we're talking about, we're dealing with folks, if we're trying to help people transition into healthcare, there are a lot of folks who might have some barriers and such. So we wanted to make sure that we actually have interactive time. So even though it's virtual, it's not like just go study on your own. We actually have live instruction happening through Zoom or other technologies where people are actually learning or interacting with an instructor. That is really critical to our success and what we believe is one of the main reasons we're driving that large number of success rates. The other piece I'll add to that on that success piece is that we do, like for example, this last one, the last cohort that went through, people were reaching out to us, students, apprentices were like, I'm so scared, I'm nervous, I don't think I'm gonna pass. And we said, yep, you know what? we're going to hire, in that case, we'll bring on a tutor and we will have them available on Wednesday and Friday and Saturday from this time to this time. You can come in and work with them however much you want. Like we will help provide that support for students because of course we're vested in their success. We want to make sure that they make it through. So the classroom time will be right now primarily virtual. And that's, if you have a full cohort of 20 and you don't want it to be virtual and you want us to figure out a way to do it locally, we can do that too. COVID, of course, being the exception. We'd have to figure out how to work around the COVID restrictions, but we do that. Now, you might say, but wait a minute, in some of these things, you actually have to touch somebody. How do you do that? You can't do labs through virtual labs. So we actually have a setup of 3 different things. So one is we have online, like we're doing right now, we're interactive classroom setup. We also have a scenario in which we will send an instructor out to a location. So if we have students in Spokane or Bellingham or whatever, and they need to do a wet lab, like they need to practice actually giving someone a shot or doing whatever, we actually will send an instructor there for certain days to go practice with people. So we have a setup where we can do that. We also have a setup where people can come in. We partner with Clover Park Technical College. They're the college that we do our classroom instruction through. And we actually can have all of our students, sorry, my alarm's going off, so I'm turning that off. We actually can have students go to our classroom at Clover. We actually have a dedicated classroom at Clover Park Technical College as well, where we have all the equipment and all the technology we need. So people can come there and we can do training there when we have to do it. So out of each quarter semester, we might have certain days that they need to actually practice doing live things. And we will either send an instructor if they're remote or have them come local to Clover Park Technical College if they're local. Okay, I'm pausing. Questions about that? Okay, I'm going to show you another video. It's just 2 minutes. It's really quick, but I think it's a good video. And again, these are available. We have a lot of information on, well, a lot. We have information on our website, but when it comes down to actually getting specifics around how do we work with you individually, contact me. Actually, we have a director of apprenticeship who's not here today because he had a conflict, but his name is Mark Buffet, and he is phenomenal at working details. The man is amazing, and he actually can help you get all the details set up that you need with your particular apprenticeship program. So I would probably connect you with Mark. You're also welcome to contact me. And I'll talk a little bit more, but let me show you this video really quick. Let's see here. Let me get that up here and share that with you. Bear with me 1 second. Try to pull that up. Oh, I see that it is not working right now, so I'm not gonna do that. But there is another video that I can send out to you. I'll make sure it's working on our website. That is really about this. What are the steps that you go through in order to get signed up so that you can see how relatively actually easy it is because we already have the structure designed for you. The main thing, depending on whether you're trying to do clinics, if you have everybody in one location, setting up the apprenticeship program is really, frankly, quite easy. But if you're doing it where you have, like with one of our Kaiser cohorts where we have clinics all over Washington State and 1 or 2 people are coming in from each of those clinics, then it becomes a little more complicated just on the mentor side. So it's not, we've done it and it's worked out great, but it does take a little more thought processes around coordinating when they're learning what, to make sure that all the mentors are kind of on the same page, that they're learning the same type of topics at the same time. So that's a piece that we work with you. One of the ways that we work with you on that is that we have an app called Work Hands. It's actually very cool. And all the apprentices and all the mentors have access to this Work Hands app. And it tracks everything. So when an apprentice can go on and say, yep, I spent X number of hours doing this competency, it automatically gets sent to the mentor who signs off and says, yep, Tiana did great at that. She signed them off. That then gets sent automatically back to us because we have to update the state. So we have to track all that information and make sure everybody's on track where they're at. And all that happens automatically through an app that they can pull up on their phone and do. So it really makes it easy. The other thing is that we have a mentor training program. So in addition to the apprentices, we're gonna figure out how you want to recruit and identify apprentices. We'll help you do all that. Once you figured out who it is, well, and you have to figure out where you want them, so which locations. You also have to have mentors. So every apprentice has to have a mentor. It doesn't mean that they have to have the same mentor the whole time. It just means on any given day, the apprentice needs to be able to say, Joe is my mentor today, right? Whoever it is. But it could be that Joe is an expertise in one skill, but the next day you want them to learn something else. You want them to work specifically in pediatrics. So you're going to send them over to Tiana, who's a specialist in pediatrics, and you want them to learn from them. So the mentor doesn't have to be the same person. It can be different people as they're learning different skills, but they have to, on any given day, have a mentor. We will train those mentors, because just because you're good at your job doesn't mean you're a good mentor. So we actually have a mentor training program that we work with to support the mentors, to let them figure out how to be a good mentor. We have resources that they can, if the mentor during the program is like, I'm really struggling with this person, I'm not sure how to handle this. We have access. We have a mentor, our own mentor person who they can reach out to and say, look, I don't know how to do this, and they will coach them around that. So we have supports for the mentors as well. And that's a really critical part of this process. Okay, I'm pausing again. Questions, comments, thoughts, mostly questions.
Hi, Laura. I have a question again. You have the 3 positions now that you're working towards, and I've seen in a couple places potentially other roles. So wondering if there's any thoughts around that, for instance, in senior care and assisted living, certified nursing assistants are, really kind of the bulk of our staff. And we actually have our own training program, CNA Academy, that we put people through, but we still are short because of all of the restrictions and COVID and testing delays and, all kinds of stuff like that with our folks. So just we're wondering if this could be something that we could also use and supplement to train even more people. So what are you guys' thoughts on additional positions?
So glad you asked that question. So I'm gonna separate that question into 2 parts. In terms of the apprenticeship itself, we actually our next one we're working on a surgical technician, because our employers on the healthcare apprenticeship program wanted to see the full transition from central sterile processing to surgical tech to potentially OR nurse. They wanted to see that progression, so we're working on that. But we also have some other occupations that we're thinking about, but we'd love to hear from employers around what they think should be next or on the list. I'm separating that from CNA or NAC because we actually, in Washington State, the NAC and CNA can't be a formal apprenticeship program because of the duration of the program. That being said, but great news, we built a NAC program. So we actually have, when COVID hit, when we reached out to our employers and said, how can we help you? NAC is what they said they needed. So we actually built a virtual reality NAC program. It is right now sitting with the Nursing Commission for final approval. We've already been through their, we're expecting final approval in the next week for that program. It's very cool. We offer that. So here, I'm going to give you another acronym. There are VHI, our Virtual Healthcare Institute. I don't want to confuse any of this, but because of COVID, we realized that we needed to start doing more virtual work, and we were already doing virtual classrooms, and we realized we wanted to get into virtual reality. So we quickly, over the last 6 months, have built a virtual reality NAC program that we are offering through what we're calling the Virtual Healthcare Institute. We actually are planning, we now have funding for a medical assisting apprenticeship program for the classroom part. We now have funding to build that into a virtual reality version as well. So we're just now starting to build a virtual reality part of that. But the NAC is done. As soon as the Nursing Commission signs off, we will be publicizing in a big way the NAC program that's in this virtual reality. Now, what I mean by virtual reality is that we have a learning management system that we use that was designed specifically for professional technical content. It's a very cool website. So students log in there and they actually do parts of their learning. And they have also parts of live interaction with an instructor like we're doing here. But the really cool part, the part that everyone's jazzed about, is that the lab portion is virtual reality. So that means we actually they have access to virtual reality goggles. We have filmed all the labs in 3D. And so when they go and they actually do it's hard for me I can't demonstrate it because I have to give everybody goggles to demonstrate. So I've done actually demonstrations where I've sent the goggles ahead of time to people and said, okay, and we schedule it and we make it happen. And I'm happy to do that with anybody, but it takes a lot more planning. And once you, basically they actually, all of the lab portions, they wear the goggles, and there's 2 different kinds of goggles. I won't get into all that, but it's like you're there. So even though you can't be in the classroom right now, it's as if you're in the classroom, and that mentor instructor is talking directly to you saying, okay, so now we turn the patient. And you actually, they're turning the patients. It's like you're right there, and you can turn your head around and see the bed and see it's really cool.
Very cool, yeah.
Yeah, and it's our first foray into this, was, like I said, with CNA, but now we're doing medical assisting as well. So we do have that program. It's a 3-week intensive. So we do it at 3 weeks, 4 hours a day for 3 weeks, to get ready for the exam for CNA. We actually have a full 6-week program that we already have been running in partnership with Seattle Jobs Initiative, who Ryan is the executive director, and he's on this call here today. That is called IHAP. Yeah, there's Ryan. IHAP is the Introduction to Healthcare Apprenticeship and Healthcare Apprenticeship, Introduction to Healthcare Occupations and Apprenticeship. Yeah, sorry. And the IHAP program, the first 3 weeks, we are taking people from the public who want to get into healthcare or think they might want to get into healthcare. We're introducing them to what are the different occupations in healthcare, what you might want to do. And we do skills around helping them be job readiness. So making sure that they actually are prepared for a workplace. They know how to show up to work on time. They know, basically how do you deal with conflict? All the basic things that you need to know, as well as introduction to healthcare. That's 3 weeks. And then we follow it as soon as the CNA gets approved, we're going to follow it by the CNA program. So by the time they complete these 6 weeks, they will be ready to go to work in any occupation that needs a CNA. So they can get started. And we're working with community-based organizations to funnel people into that position or into those classrooms. So we have grants right now that we're running. And so part of our grant we give to SGI in order to run that first 3-week program of the IHAP. So in answer to your question, we're on CNA like white on rice, if I can use that analogy. We're just waiting for the final approval from the Nursing Commission. Again, we hope to have that this week, and are planning to start those as soon as we get Nursing Commission approval.
That's great. Well, I can connect with both you and Ryan offline maybe, and we can talk about that. Perfect.
And just a quick plug there for those that diversity, equity, and inclusion is at the center of efforts. We're at 90% plus BIPOC participants in the IHAP program. So really, bridging those pathways for our communities of color to be able to enter into and start a healthcare career and get to that sustainable wage point. So a great way, we'll look forward to partnering with additional employers that have that at the center of work that they're doing.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan.
And then I see that, yeah, you're welcome. In chat, I see somebody asked, can only employers in the training fund access the Virtual Healthcare Institute? And the answer is no. Again, we use grants in order to run those cohorts, and we're trying to get as many people through. And so it's really, if I can use, it's somewhat open to the public. I mean, by that I don't mean not just anybody can come and go. We actually have interviews and such for people to get into the class to see who might be a good fit, because there are some folks, there are some characteristics that have proven to be more successful than others. And so between SGI's long experience in doing this, and they actually used a program, Swedish and SGI actually started with Grow Hire, which some of you might have heard about. We basically asked to take Grow Hire and put it on steroids. And that's what we did with IHAP. So SGI has a lot of experience under their belt now working with participants and seeing what characteristics help them be successful, what ones don't, where they might need some other support before they could join. So they actually get interviewed before joining. So anybody, and then on the other end, we want all employers to have access to the graduates of that program. So any healthcare employer, presumably in Washington State, because most of our grant money comes from Washington. Somewhere in Washington, we have King County grant money, Pierce County grant money, different things. Any employer in Washington State, we want to funnel those graduates into healthcare employers. So that's the goal. You know, from the training fund perspective, part of our mission is to get people into healthcare. So we're really excited about being able to take populations, especially people of color or underrepresented groups or folks with barriers, and help support them in making the transition into the healthcare sector. Okay, I'm realizing it's 12:59. So I could keep talking all day because I love this stuff. And I can go on and on, but I probably should bring things to a close. I am available, but again, Mark is our apprenticeship director of apprenticeship, and he will, his customer service is impeccable. He will help you figure out every little detail. And he would be the one who's actually working with you. Although we're hiring an apprenticeship coordinator because he's getting slammed. So we're hiring an apprenticeship coordinator right now. We're finalizing, we're in our last stage of interviews. So there might be another person who's also involved in the mix, but Mark is still going to be the overall one. But any of the big picture stuff, I'm happy to answer anytime. Oh,
Do you
and
have
don't forget our
contact
website.
info for Mark real quick?
Sure, yes. Actually, let me put that on there. I'm going to add that to the chat. I'm going to,
Perfect.
his last name
Thank you.
is Buffet. And so I'm going to copy his email just so I don't misspell, because it would be one that I could misspell. So here we go. Oops. There we go. And then I'm going to put it into chat.
This is Amy from Kaiser. I jumped on late, but I just wanted to say the MA apprenticeship program that we've been running for the last year has been amazing. There's been lots of lessons learned for sure. I'm more on the operations side on our side, but the partnership has been amazing. All of our folks have passed their test, like you had mentioned.
Wow.
And so today we are making final selections as to where apprentices will be going into for their final transition. Even though they're not transitioning until November, December, they will be able to pick their positions today, finalize that, and so they have a position secured.
We are super, super excited and super proud of that partnership. So
Yes.
there was a lot of lessons learned because Kaiser was our first employer that we were working with. So it was great to actually have an invested employer that we could work a lot of the kinks out with. But now we've got a good system. So that's the beauty.
Absolutely. Yes. So thank you for the partnership.
Thank you, Amy.
Mhm.
All right.
I want to thank Laura for your time today.
Mhm.
An incredible amount of information. Yeah, claps all around, snaps, all the apps. And I definitely think the recording of this is going to be really beneficial for other industry members who weren't able to attend. We want to make sure that people, get the word out, hear the word, and can contact Mark and yourself in the future. So again, Ryan put in the chat, if you have any other questions, reach out. And thank you again, Laura, so much for this great lunch and learn hour. You're able to pound it out in 44 minutes after technical difficulties. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was great.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.